I lost 78 pounds in just 7 months, and I did it without starving myself, without living in the gym, without obsessing over exercise. You want to know how I did it? Hey, Coach Mark here. So last September, I was very overweight. I was in a bad place. I was struggling with my weight. My energy was low. I essentially lost control of my eating and really of my life because it all kind of spilled over into other areas. So poor diet, poor sleep, sedentary lifestyle, low energy, constant kind of negative, kind of mental fatigue, negative internal dialogue, chatter, what have you. I knew I had to make a change. I was coming to that crossroads in my mind, not just because the way I looked, and to be honest, I was feeling pretty ashamed. But I wanted to be healthier. I wanted to be happier. I wanted more energy. I wanted to do more with my life again. Essentially a comeback of sorts. But with all that said, like as much as being a health coach and a personal trainer for as long as I've been, like I know what to do, right? Like generally know what to eat, how to exercise, how to recover, how to sleep, all those things. But the mental hurdle, it's this idea of just because you know what to do doesn't mean you can actually do it, right? Like that is the thing. Like how do you make it applicable to your life? And to use the old cliche of knowledge is power, I would always add to that, knowledge is power if applied properly. Knowledge on its own doesn't get you very far, right? So, with that said, today I'm sharing how I did it, how I lost 78 pounds through diet, through exercise, through recovery strategies. And really, as I've been kind of emphasizing here, how I was able to get over the mental hurdles that were really blocking me from going, because it wasn't knowledge, it was it was really myself. So now I'm going to walk you through my transformation journey, how I lost 78 pounds in 7 months. I think it's important to start out with habits because my success is really attributed to a bunch of small habit changes done consistently over time that laddered up to the big results. So first, defining a habit, a usual way of behaving, something that a person does often in a regular and repeated way. A recurrent, often unconscious pattern of behavior that is acquired through frequent repetition. So those first two bullets are speaking to the consistency aspect quite a bit. A settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. In this sense, we're starting to talk about how not all habits are created equal. Some are good, some are bad, quote unquote. Some are indifferent. An acquired behavior pattern regularly followed until it has become almost involuntary, thus the habit, the habitual. A learned behavioral response that has become associated with a particular situation, especially one frequently repeated. So honing in on the learned behavioral response there, that's the key with habits. It's something that you might have to learn some skills, something you're going to have to practice. It's going to have to be repetitive, done over a period of time before it becomes a true habit and something that's more done on the subconscious level. So I can't emphasize it enough that really it's just those small steps that you consistently take. And in this case, I'm going to walk through in the next few slides here some of the small habit changes that I made. Obviously can't give you all of them. That'd be quite time consuming. There were a lot, but I think you'll get a good sense of really the overarching steps that I took. So starting off with exercise, for each section, I'm going to go through a mini assessment, laying out my opportunities and my strengths. So my opportunities from a movement perspective were basically I was in a lot of pain and discomfort. I've mentioned my injuries previously: neck, lower back, hips, shoulders, and plenty more. My activity was low. I was essentially sedentary, not moving at all. I think it's really important that you also kind of tease out your strengths when you're starting a program or you're looking to take it up a notch, whatever it may be. I think we get too caught up and fixated on what we're not doing well, and where really we could benefit quite a bit if we leverage our strengths. What are we doing well? How can we do more of that? So in terms of exercise, my strengths were, I have a lot of knowledge. I've been a personal trainer for over 20 years, a health coach over 10 years. So knowledge was something that I really could rely upon. It's not like I needed to go looking up a bunch of new ideas to get direction. Experience, I've done this many times for other people and for myself. So it's that idea of I've done this before and I've been successful. I know I can do it again. I had access to a gym. Not everybody has that, so I just wanted to lay that out there. Plenty of walking options. I live in one of those neighborhoods with a lot of parks and open streets and free range. I have a lot of my own equipment: kettlebells, bands, vipers, mats, med balls. So I was able to do workouts at home, out in the park, wherever I wanted to. And lastly, the openness to new habits. I think that's important. Like I've learned this with clients. If they're not open to something, it might not be forever, but right now they're putting up a wall, they're resisting. And those aren't the first habits that you're going to recommend somebody go to. You want to find habits that they feel motivated to do, they feel are easy enough to do, and they have the skills to do so. So now going through the key steps in exercise. So a lot of walking. Walking is what started the journey. 20-minute walks became 20-minute walks every other day. Eventually I was able to stack back-to-back days and then more and more. So eventually I worked up from just a few thousand steps a day, north of 10,000 steps a day, which is, a general consensus of living a healthy, active lifestyle. Moving on, I had to manage the injuries. Like I knew before I can get into any resistance training that I needed to work more on kind of armoring myself up. I needed to do a lot of core work, bracing my spine from all angles. I had to work a lot on shoulder mobility, especially, having underwent arthroscopic shoulder surgery. After I built up my foundation, then I moved into resistance training. Resistance being, anything from my body weight to the equipment that I had, and eventually getting back in the gym and using, all the equipment available. And program progressions, there were so many, but again, the overarching theme here is everything was small steps. Can I do 3 sets of 8 kneeling push-ups? Can I go from 3 sets of 8 to 3 sets of 10? Right? That's a little goal before I start just going for full push-ups, knowing that my shoulder probably wouldn't take it. So yeah, so program progressions, there were many. I think I'll do another video down the line of really showing how I go about progressing or regressing any given movement. Moving into diet. So again, from the assessment, Looking at my opportunities, I was having a lot of processed foods, way too much sugar. I was, becoming a cookie monster every night. Alcohol, knocking back 2 to 3 bottles of wine. My portion sizes were large, even on those occasions where I was having healthier meals. And I was over consuming coffee, caffeine. In terms of anti-inflammatory intake and antioxidants and minerals and nutrients and all that good stuff, I was pretty much low across the board. Fruits, veggies, whole foods, and I wasn't even drinking enough water. But once again, looking at my strengths, I have the knowledge, I have the experience. Going more on this, I have access to whole foods, I have the means, I have the stores nearby. Um, Something to note is I was already intermittent fasting, not by design, just because I was rocking so much coffee through the morning that I didn't even want to eat. So that's something, hey, I was already doing it. Why not start there and build upon it? And then again, openness to new habits. I was in a place, very motivated, very open to whatever I was going to take from a diet perspective. So the key changes I made with diet. So again, I mentioned I started with intermittent fasting. What I did there is there was no real structure to it. I didn't have a certain amount of hours I was looking to intermittent fast, or have the 6 to 8 hour feeding window. So that was one of the first steps I took, was just putting a little bit more structure to that and making it a 14-hour fast, at least up to 16 hours. And then my feeding window was 8 to 10 hours. So keto was a key to my success. I had tried keto previously in the past with really minimal to no success. I like my carbohydrates. I should mention that for those who don't know what keto is. It's essentially switching your primary fuel source from carbohydrates into fat. How do you do that? You basically minimize your carbs to 50 or less. That's just the general marker. Will shift a little bit depending on body size. But after a period of time of not eating carbohydrates, your body moves into ketosis. And again, it shifts the fuel source from carbohydrates and simple sugars to fats. So when I say I slowly started getting into keto, I didn't want to just flip a switch and just drop my carbs, because again, I was having so many, from alcohol to sugars to all the processed foods I was having. So I took time over about a week or two, slowly but surely dropping my carbs to a point where it wasn't until after 2 weeks that I got myself to ketosis, but it was a much more manageable approach. So again, small steps there. Next, I moved on to something real simple. It's just, I wasn't having enough water. So naturally, just drinking some more water. I put, you know, um, filling up a bottle that I made sure that I was drinking regularly at a certain time. And supplements, simple. I was just taking some fish oil, some magnesium to help with going to sleep. The transition of whole foods, obviously key. I'm at the point now where I don't actually have any processed foods. Everything I'm eating is wholesome in somewhere or another, I suppose. And lastly here, when I put fasting, so this is different from intermittent fasting. And again, another video I'll do on this, but I was learning a lot about parasites and how to get rid of them. So I will do another video on a deeper dive on exactly how I did that. But a key component was fasting. I started off with a 24-hour fast, eventually got up to a 48-hour, and I topped it off with 72 hours. So it's just great to do periodically. It clears out a lot of stuff, helps kind of reset your gut, get rid of a lot of the the waste that kind of just builds up over time, and those nasty parasites that do a lot of harm and damage. More to come on that. All right, moving into sleep. So my opportunities. Um, I didn't have a set bedtime. Um, I was essentially all over the place with that. Although my wake up time was pretty decent. A lot of blue light screens, be it the TV, tablet, phone, whatever. Alcohol, which really is a detriment to your sleep cycles. And mentioning at length is those sweets that I don't actually miss, to be honest. My quality of sleep was poor. I wasn't getting 7 hours of sleep a night, which is just general consensus of what most people need for health and optimal performance. And I had very little sunlight exposure. I really wasn't going outside much at all. And sunlight exposure early in the morning helps with your sleep drive later at night. More to come on that in another video. So strengths, a little redundant, the knowledge, the experience. I know how to do this. I've done it before. And more unique to sleep was I had a consistent wake up time. So even though what time I decided to go to bed at night was all over the place, every morning I did have an alarm set, and I was pretty consistent at getting up even without that alarm. And I have had a good sleep environment. I think this is important to note that for some people, sleep issues might be they live in a noisy area, or it's really bright, or their partner is a snorer, or whatever it may be. So for me, I had a sleep environment that was conducive to solid sleep. I just wasn't um, I just wasn't taking the other steps that I needed to get it. So going into those steps, we had the morning sunlight. This actually just happened naturally because the more that I was walking, my walks were generally early in the morning. I live in Arizona, so you want to get those out of the way before it gets over 100 degrees. So naturally, I was just getting more sunlight in the morning, and then that was helping with my sleep drive, and it was easier for me to fall asleep at night. So that naturally just lent into a more consistent bedtime. That happened kind of naturally. Um, Eventually, I progressed into no screens for at least 30 minutes before I went to bed. So shut off the TV, shut down the phone, and avoid taking in that blue light, which your brain essentially sees as sunlight and triggers it to think, hey, it's time to be awake. So again, more to come on another video. Hertz sound frequencies. So this is something I just learned about, in the last year. Is there's so many different frequencies out there that all serve a different purpose. For example, 428 hertz frequencies help you with falling asleep. You have others that help energize, other that are more healing. So I started playing around with the hertz frequencies, and that helped me put me in a more calm and relaxed state to promote a restful sleep. And lastly, where I'm at now, I do kind of a mix of meditation with listening to hertz frequencies. Meditation, obviously, you can do it in so many different ways. I enjoy listening to relaxing hertz frequencies as I focus on my breath and within. Motivation. So connecting with your why. I'll actually go right into a deeper dive into this. So connecting to your why is essentially like, why do you want this goal? A lot of times we think we should be doing something which is more of like a superficial, more of a surface goal. And the concept here of the five whys is, if you continue to ask yourself why a certain goal, like, I want to lose weight. Why do you want to lose weight? because I want to be healthier. Why do you want to be healthier? So you keep asking why, and you get more to the root of the drive, of the motivation. And by doing so, you're more likely to have well, one, a stronger motivation for sure, but also it's a way to better sustain your motivation when it begins to falter. Because naturally, right, motivation is not linear. You're going to have ups and downs. It's not like, I'm sure you could reflect on it right now. Have are you always super motivated to do everything that you want? Or are there some lulls in your motivation, some gaps? And at times that motivation dwindles for too long. This is a great way of getting yourself back on the path much quicker. Here is an example that's more specific to me and my journey. So I want to start taking better care of myself is where I started. Why do I want to take better care of myself? Because I want to lose weight. I was, over 250 pounds, well above where I'd ever been. Why do I want to lose weight? Well, I want to improve my health. I was feeling, I was dealing with some health issues, blood pressure, cholesterol, um, some vertigo, and some other stuff that I'll cover down the line. Kept continuing asking why. I want to live as long as I can. Why do you want to live as long as you can? Because I want to do more with my life. Why do you want to do more with your life? And this is where I landed. I want to make more of an impact before I go. So you see how continually asking why got more to that root cause. That's much more of a stronger drive than if I just left it at the superficial. I want to start taking better care of myself. When push comes to shove and the obstacles and the challenges arise, I want to start taking better care of myself is not going to sustain my motivation. Now, if I can revisit and make sure, hey, like, you want to make more of an impact before you go, and these are the steps that you need to take to put you in that position, that's much more motivating. And wanting to make it more of an impact before I go, here I am creating this video and trying to make that bigger impact. So, breaking down your goals. This is both habits and your goals. Like, if I want to lose 20 pounds, maybe it's, I want to lose 1 or 2 in the first week. I want to lose, 5 in the first month. Um, so essentially breaking down your goals into something that's specific, that you'll be able to measure. It's attainable, it's realistic, and there's a time bound element to it. Setting performance benchmarks is another important factor in driving and sustaining motivation. So performance benchmarks, taking the example I mentioned before, like if I can do 3 sets of 8 kneeling push-ups, and I set a benchmark that, in the next 2 weeks, I want to get 3 sets of 10. It's such a small jump, right? It's just a couple more reps per set, but it's a performance benchmark. It's essentially a micro goal that I'm able to achieve. When you achieve a goal, you feel good, right? You get the endorphins going, you get the dopamine rush, and that's more likely to fuel and continue to keep you pushing forward. Create a positive environment. Um, this is, everything, your social environment, your, not just your home environment, that you want to make sure it's clean, conducive to your work or workouts if you work there, what have you. And very important throughout all of this is always celebrate your wins, even those small wins that are just a couple reps here or there, or maybe you did an extra set, even if it's at the same weight. All of these, like, you have to recognize that you're being successful and moving forward, right? It's especially important, like, if you have a weight loss goal, you're not gonna see the scale come down every single week. But if you're setting smart habit goals, if you're setting performance benchmarks, these are um, other markers and measures of progress. And the more when you're seeing progress, your motivation remains high. Mindfulness. Um, Again, I feel repetitive saying this, but I will do a deeper dive on this in another video. Um, but so many benefits to mindfulness: your energy, your recovery, you sleep better, you just you're just um, better able to manage anything because you're so much more aware. So my quick breakdown here is with mindfulness is starting with that awareness. Being mindful is just that. At first, it's just being more aware of your thoughts, how your body feels, um, any further awareness on yourself, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And you want to do that with a non-judgmental lens, right? Like if I continually have these thoughts of, man, you're not good enough, like, oh, Mark, you're so dumb. Why'd you do that? Like that's a judgmental thought, and thoughts unchecked become beliefs, right? So it's being aware of your thoughts without essentially putting a judgment or a label on it. You just want to be open and curious, because at first it's like, why am I having these thoughts? Like, why do I continue to go to you're not good enough? Really, just can't do this. Like, why does my mind, why does my brain go there? Next, moving into that stage of acceptance, like accepting that you're going to have these not so pleasant or negative thoughts. They're going to arise. But again, just thoughts are natural. It's just don't allow them to become beliefs. And that's where transmutation comes in. So now you're taking that negative thought of, oh, Mark, you're so dumb. Why'd you do that? Instead, maybe it's, hey, Mark, like, that wasn't the best thing you could have done there, but it happened. You're going to learn from it. You won't make that same mistake, and you'll do better next time. So transmutation is essentially taking that negative thought or feeling, and eventually you get to a point where you change it, you recognize it for what it is, and you change it into something more positive that will benefit you. And last but not least, throughout this entire process, and really always, is we need to be practicing self-compassion. Um, I think this gets overlooked too often. Is we are our own worst critics. We are harshest to ourselves. Nobody gets more in our way than ourselves. That negative mental chatter. So really being good to yourself, being kind to yourself, and that's why I love things like journaling, be it writing on a in a diary app or in a physical diary, just getting your thoughts out there, and which help you become more aware, recognize the negative patterns, and you could you could transmutate it into being something more positive and more compassionate to yourself. Beating yourself up, I mean, in the short term, it might help out a little bit, might give you a little bit of a kick in the ass, but long term, if you're beating yourself up, that's not going to be a good thing. So in summary, this was not easy, but it was easy in the sense that it was easier in the sense that I really stayed grounded and really on stayed grounded on my foundation of principles, right? Like it was much more about progress than perfection. When I ran into challenges or setbacks, it was an opportunity to learn, to grow, to make more changes that will get me to where I'm trying to go. So whatever change you're trying to make, I encourage you to start small. And again, like I hopefully I've emphasized it enough in this video that small changes really do lead up to big results. Stop putting the pressure on yourself to take these huge leaps because you feel like you're so far from where you want to be. The small habit changes, the small changes to your routine, the small additions to your strength, to your sleep, all of these things add up, and together collectively they are going to lead to transformation. So all this to say, I lost 78 pounds, but really, by the first 20, I was feeling so much healthier and so much happier. So it's not like, okay, you need to lose or make some really huge significant changes to start feeling better. In reality, just going out for that first 20-minute walk immediately changed my mindset. So I implore you, just go out there, just take that first step. And with that said, I invite you to let me know what you're working on. What is that step that you're going to take today coming out of this video? Your transformation journey can start with this action step, or if you're already along the way in your journey, this could be a way to just take it up another notch and keep your momentum moving forward. So if this inspired you, hit that subscribe button and join me for more fitness tips. Next week, I'm going to be putting out a masterclass video on sleep. I just kind of touched on some stuff here, but I'm going to do a deep dive, again, from the lens of a sleep coach who's been able to adopt these lessons and apply it in ways where now I sleep about 8 hours every night. I don't wake up fatigued. I wake up ready to rock and start my day. So I look forward to sharing that info with you. Thanks for watching.